So here we are at the Paris Motor Show 2024. Looking forward to seeing the design shootout between the Chinese brands and the established brands in Europe, and just to get a feel for how healthy and confident the car industry is feeling. So the first thing you see is BMW, who weren't really going to be here until recently. It's BMW France, not the factory, although the stand looks great. And a minute ago, Juliette Binoche, the famous French actress, was there talking about how much she loves BMWs. So getting off to a good start. Well, undoubtedly, one of the talking points of the show is Leapmotor, which is now part of the Stellantis group. Stellantis paid €1.5 billion about a year ago to acquire 20% of Leapmotor, and already they're talking about it very confidently as a big part of the brands going forward. So this is the steering wheel in concept, which we think is called Hypersquare, although it's clearly not square. But what you'll notice as people mess around with it is they keep looking down at the steering wheel, and that's because the steering wheel is quite entertaining, which is probably not the best idea when you're supposed to be focusing on the road ahead. There's something about the Peugeot stand that worries me, because it actually looks like a fleet of Peugeots at an event rather than the Peugeot stand, and that's because they've coloured them all in this rather interesting camouflage. It makes all the cars look a bit the same. It's great to see Ford here with a proper stand, in contrast to 2 years ago. It's split between commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles, and they've got the new Capri ready to be unveiled, which I'm quite interested to see. So XPeng have reached for the flying card. It's actually a pretty cool looking one. This is the kind of thing that brands used to do at motor shows. Wacky stuff, got everyone talking, and guess what? It's a Chinese brand doing it. So this is a Renault Estafette, which is a name that was very big in France in the 1960s. Kind of utilitarian way of getting stuff from one place to another. It looks absolutely fantastic, and it's got some amazing design touches and really reflects Renault's current confidence in design, the way they're trying to make cars fun and interesting. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a Cybertruck. I recently saw one on the streets of New York, and it was pretty impressive, a bit of a showstopper. Did it look like something you could own? No. But would it be something you'd want? Yes. So it's interesting that the Cybertruck is getting all the attention on the stand, when in fact probably the most interesting exhibit is the Tesla humanoid. If you saw the launch last week, it really was the star of the show. You can get one for roughly the same cost as a car. It's your own personal slave. So the big reveal on the Tesla stand is this. It's the world's best-selling car, except this version of the Model Y has 7 seats, or just about. Here's a brand that's big but wasn't expected to be at the show, and that's Cadillac. Not quite sure what they're doing in Europe, but they've got a lot of shiny big SUVs. So the Paris Motor Show has always had a lot of these micro cars. They've never really been very convincing, but they're starting to change that. These small, lightweight electric cars are really quite cool and look very usable and very in tune with electrification in a way that conventional cars aren't. There's quite a few to choose from, and I really like this one. This really is the Mini Motor brought back to life. It's the Kilo, and it has everything that I want in a small car. Lightweight, affordable, premium, and it's extremely cool. So the big reveal on the Renault stand was the Renault 4. Unlike the concept, this actually looks a bit more like the Renault 4 that some of us will remember from the old days. Not quite as exciting as the 5, you could argue, but it really looks very cute and makes Renault's existing lineup look, if I dare say it, a little bit old-fashioned. So one of the accessories you can get with your Renault 4 is this, which is an electric aeroplane. Not sure I'm going to get in it anytime soon. So this is interesting. THK, a Japanese parts supplier, think Bosch, actually looks very well finished, nicely engineered, and a bit different from some of the cars that are being shown alongside it. So there are lots of new brands here which weren't previewed before the show. And one of them is Honki, which has got a few conventional looking cars and then a few that frankly aren't very conventional, or at least not in the right way. So this is the XPeng G6. It's the Tesla Model Y rival. It's quite new, mirrors the Tesla range, and is priced from just below 40,000 euros to just above. Comes in 3 different flavours, and we're trying the middle one. So here we are driving the XPeng G6 in Paris as part of the Paris Motor Show trip. In preparation, I read the review from my alma mater Autocar, and the overriding impression I got was that the journalist was a little bit bored with saying how great the car was, how standard all the features were. And that's not to say that this isn't a great car. It really is very well resolved, good value for money. It has an 800 volt battery, which is a big advance over, say, Tesla's technology, which is 400 volts and allows much faster charging and keeps the battery in better condition for longer. So it really is a very complete vehicle. As you can see, it's got a great interior, it's very refined. So here we are on the Renault stand, and it's really a story of design, starting with the emblem, which is a hydrogen car which has an electric battery and motor as well. Moving on to the Renault 5. It's the 3rd show I've been to where it's been the star of the Renault show, and I'm still loving it, despite the fact that it's not on sale quite yet in the UK. Then the Twingo, which won't be on the streets until 2026. This looks great. It really reinvents the magic of the Twingo in the 1990s in a very convincing way. And then the Renault 4, which doesn't quite do the job as well as the 5 stylistically. Certainly recognisable as a 4. One of the things I do love about it though is it has bi-directional charging, which means that you can use it as your domestic battery or use it to balance the grid, as well as charge it from your own sources. And then finally this Resto mod, which is very sort of Renault Fuego from the old days, in galactic brown, 270 bhp electric. Contrast that with the way Ford has approached the Capri, which is a rebadge of the Explorer, this is much more up my street. I'm sitting in the back of the mobilised Duo because I want to see whether it's viable for a trip to the shops with a passenger, and the answer is yes. The great thing about the Duo is, unlike the Ami, it goes 50 miles an hour, which is what it needs to do. The Ami only does 29. So the big debate with motor shows for years now is whether they can justify the cost. It's very hard to understand exactly what the effect of showing your cars expensively at a show like this has on sales. Citroën have therefore done something quite clever with this studio, which takes up an element of their stand. They're obviously using it to create content, to widen the reach of the show, to attract people who perhaps couldn't make it to Paris. And we think that's very smart. It's probably been quite an expensive experiment, and it'll be interesting to see what results they get. We'll certainly be monitoring that and report back to you. So here we are in the Hongqi H9, a car that's been around for about 4 years now, but not in Europe, certainly not in mainstream Europe. I think it's been in Scandinavian countries. Often referred to as the Rolls-Royce of China, but not with Rolls-Royce prices. This is probably about 75,000 euros, and the maximum you'll pay for one of these is 100,000. The technology is very impressive, as it is for most of these Chinese entrants. So here we are in the hall where most of the Chinese brands are exhibiting. You've got brands like Hongqi, you've got Ito, you've got Forthing. A bit further down, you've got Skyworth, you've got GAC or GAC, not sure how to pronounce that. And they're all competing in a very similar way. It's all about premium. They've all got a Tesla size car. Similar to XPeng downstairs, they're the only brand that isn't here from that group. They're trying to differentiate, but they're using exactly the same language. And that's a problem. It's one that the Western brands, the incumbents, are counteracting with design. We've seen Renault already doing a great job of that. And that brings us to BYD, who have probably been the most active brand this year. It's been a big year for them. They've sponsored the Euros, they've attended the major motor shows, they've invested heavily. Their stand here today is actually smaller than it was, we would say, 2 years ago. Smaller than the stand in Geneva, where they were pretty lonely on their own. Why that is, I'm not sure, but it's a bit less impressive. The technology is very good, the cars are great, the fit and finish is very convincing. But again, how are they going to differentiate? What makes a customer want a BYD that goes beyond price and goes beyond convenience? There's still a big job to do.